Hello there, I'm Afkhan Ahamed and my registration number is 1624174. I will be demonstrating the XML RPC and the RMI codes for the recycling machine server. We will start with the XML RPC version of the server. Starting with the initial server start. When we compile and run the server, the codes for the server start will be executed. In here, a new object of the web server will be created with a specific port number, and a new object of the recycling service class will be created. Then the web server object is given a handler named recycling machine. Using this handler key, the clients can access server and run methods in the recycling service class. When you run the recycling service class, the main method of that class will be executed where the server is started. So if I run the application here, the IP address of the server and the port number used to start the server will be displayed in a label, making it easy to share with the clients. When a client logs in, the server login method in the recycling service class will be called by the client. IP address and the name of the client along with the values will be called as parameters to the server login method from the client. These parameter values will be added into a vector using objects of connected clients class. This vector is made public and static, making it possible to access from anywhere else. And when a client connects to the server, the parameter values will be stored into a text file in the server machine with the IP address of the file name. This action is executed by calling this method, where it will check for the file and write the values taken from the parameters to this file. And then the print connected machines method will be called. The client IP address, the client name, and the connected date and time will be updated and displayed in the connected machines area. In this function, the connected client details will be taken into a string, and then that string is passed to the show online machines method, which is in the server main, where the string will be set as the text in the main server GUI. And in here, the print client item count method is called to send the updated item count of the client to the client item count text area. For this, the item count is taken by reading the text file created with the specific client's item count in it. If the client doesn't have any item deposit record, the item count will be displayed as 0. Next, we move on to see what happens when a client transaction is sent. When a client does a transaction, whereas deposits items and prints receipt, the client will remotely call the print transaction method in the recycling service class, where details of the transaction will be passed as parameters. The parameter values will be then added into a vector of the client transaction log class, which extends client class. Then by this code, the parameters will be formatted properly and it will be added to the client transaction log text area in the server GUI. That is this text area. Similar to the server login method, the methods to update and save the client item count and the method to print the updated client item count in the item count text area will be executed inside the print transaction method. Finally, save client text count method will be executed, which will update and update and save the incremented transaction count to the text file in the server machine. And now next we move on to see what happens when the engineer actions are performed from the client side. And time to time an engineer will visit the client machines to reset individual item counts, empty machine or update machine. For this purpose, the client machine has a separate dashboard for the engineer. This dashboard is accessed after validating the engineer when he enters a password. That is the password is stored in the server machine. When engineer logs in, the client machine will call the validate engineer login method in the recycling service class by passing the password as a parameter. The password is checked and returns success or fail according to the validation. If success, the engineer will be able to access the dashboard and perform actions. When engineer performs an action, the details will be added into a vector created from the engineer action log class, which extends engineer action class. These parameters and some other variables will be formatted and then appended into the engineer transaction log text area in the server GUI with a date and timestamp. According to the action performed, the item count specific to the client will be updated and the item text file will be overwritten with the latest figures. These values also will be updated in the client item count text area in the server GUI in these codes. Now next off we move on to the other main function of the server. It is to able to change the item values of individual clients using the change values GUI. The client can change values for the selected clients. The names of the connected clients is listed in the combo box using the update combo box method in the class. Where this update combo box method will be called in when the class is being constructed. It will take the connected client machines by using the get connected client machine names method in the recycling service, and the clients will be added into the combo box. When the combo box is being updated, there is an action performed for the combo box update, where it will call the update text boxes method, and the selected client values will be displayed in text boxes using this update text boxes method in the class. According to the IP, the update values method in the recycling service will be called, and the values string will be split and then updated into the text boxes. The server can change the values of the items in the text boxes where it will load the items, and then hit update button. When this button is being clicked, the val update method will be executed with the selected IP address, and as the parameter will then get updated values in the text boxes into the variables, and update the item values text file in the machine by calling the update value file method in the recycling service class. And then after the values have been updated, when the client updates the client machine by remotely calling the update values method in the recycling service class, the new values will be then sent to the client. And finally, machine summary function is mainly focused on identifying which machine has been used the most, so that the company can focus more on the machines in that area. Machine summary is displayed using a JFree chart, pie chart, by creating a separate class with the method in it, with the create method in it. A dataset is created using the transaction count of each machine, which is read from the transaction count file. Using this information, the pie chart will be displayed. And we have come to the end of the XML RPC server demonstration. Next, we move on to the code demonstration of the RMI version of the recycling machine server. From the server side, everything except for the server start codes are same compared to the XML RPC server codes. In the RMI demonstration, I will highlight the changes done to the implementation. So first, to start with the server start, which is the connection establishment. The most important change in the RMI server compared to the RPC server is the server start code. In RMI, there is no need of a vector to pass the parameters when calling a method in the server. Instead, the client can directly call the method as how it would normally call local methods. When starting the server, an object of recycling service class will be created because all the methods which are needed for the client to access is inside the recycling service class. Next, the server will be started by creating a registry with the port number and rebinding the registry to a handler along with the recycling machine object created. The next most important significant change to the server is adding an interface to the implementation, where this interface will contain all the methods in the recycling service class which are available for the for remotely connected clients to access. The added interface should be implemented by the recycling service class, and also recycling service class should extend unicast remote object for RMI to properly work. The same interface should be created in the client side of the implementation, which will then give the ability to the client to directly call the methods. All the methods that need for the client to access should have the throws remote exception. So all the methods which will be accessible for the client has this exception. Same as that in the interface also, it's the same. So basically that is it for the RMI code demonstration, and I conclude my server code demonstration here.
Hello, I am Althaf. My student registration number is 1624198. Okay, to start off the code demonstration for the XML RPC and RMI recycling machine client side, I would first start with XML RPC, beginning with the connection establishment. First, I have to access the server login Java class. In this class, I have created the GUI for the server login, and created the connection to connect the server. Okay, so in this action performed method, when the button connect is clicked, once I can show you the GUI. Once a button connect is clicked, this action to perform first, the IP text box is called. It takes the IP text box and then the port text, and then it is accessed from the server side to get the IP and port number, which is to use it the recycle GUI in the Java class assigned. Thereafter, the parameters which are passed to get the IP address, then the parameters for the host name, and for the items to get the value updated. Thereonwards, the update item values class, it writes the file to, it first checks the file whether this existing item values.txt is available. So if it's there, it's gonna update, or it will be taking the values from this file. So thereafter, after the values are updated, so from here the server and client connection is made, and we can see that the key handler, the recycling machine, is calling out from the server class the server login and passing the parameters which is being passed here. Then thereafter it checks if the condition is equal to 1, and if it's equal to 1, the values are being updated here, and the recycling machine will display the GUI, or else there will be error message which will pop out saying that the credentials are wrong. So then the GUI will be displayed, and then it will show the GUI, and this is the GUI class, and from this all the buttons have been called, and the existing codes for this is there. And this is the components what I have added in the recycle GUI, and I have set the bounds and background color and everything here. And after the items from the GUI can be selected, it will be printed in the receipt button which is created. So the receipt button is being accessed from the my customer panel, and it's being printed from the print receipt inside the customer panel, which is declared here. And the items which is being displayed from the receipt is in the receipt basis, and all the items as can, bottle, crate and bags have been called in the receipt, and the compute sum shows the way the bottle has incremented, and how the count is being done, and how the summation is being done, and how the summary for the receipt is printed there. So externally the total items is being taken as well for the server side, and the transaction sum also is being called here, and the set total is also a method used to call from the server side, as the values will be passed from here. Then moving on to the engineer login. We can see that a username is given as admin already by default, and a password is being allocated. And going into the login of the engineer, here this is the main class for the engineer's login, and here the panel and the text button and the text field and the text password, and the button is created here, and the colors and everything is done here. And from this action performed method, the button engineer login, once you press the login from the engineer's end, so from the client, in the client class, the validate engineer is called as a method there. So the password is passed as a parameter in a string. So here it passes the password here, and then it's authenticated, and then a message if statement is given if it's success, and if it failure, and it returns the value here according to the success or the failure. And moving on to check how the engineer is able to reset individual item like according to can and any of the items what he want to reset. It's been called here in action performed inside engineer class, and this method is being called by giving a command and giving out a result. So the string is being passed here according to the button, the can or bottle or any item, and it resets the item to 0, and it will be decreasing and according to the total which is left over, and if the item has been resetted successfully, it will display as the item is resetted with the success message, or else it will prompt error message here. And then the next task of the engineer, which the engineer is able to empty the machine, and here also the command machine empty is passed, and from here every item from the machine is being assigned to 0, so that the set total also is 0, and the next task which he is able to do is to update the machine. So once a value is being updated in the machine, each value is being updated, it is being, so again it is being called from the client class, the update machine, where the file is if the it checks for the file value, the item values.txt, and then updates the value according to the new value made by the server side. Then finally the client is able to log out separately, so that the server side, the connected machines will be disabled from here. So it passes only the IP address from here, and it calls the server side's method server logout, and all the items values which is been updated, and then when the items is first read from the file, and the newly updated values from the server side is all called inside the update items value. And thank you, and that ends the RPC XML RPC session. Yes, now I will be starting the session 2, which is the recycle machine of RMI client. Starting with the RMI server interface, which extends the remote, and these methods being called from which has been implemented from the server side. And moving on to the first step, the server login, which makes the client and server connection of the RMI. And we can see here the RMI server interface is static, and which is used by the server here. Through this we can use the server according to the login which is created here, and from the action performed method, the string IP get and the int port number which is been assigned here will be passed along with the connect button from the server side, and will be read from the same way as in the file as I explained from the RPC session. And this is where the connection is done from the to the server and client. And moving to the, after the server is logged in, it moves to the recycle GUI. So here is where the recycle GUI is called, and from the initial stage of the connection, this is where the IP and port is being called while in the connection during the server login. And this is the design of the recycle GUI as I explained in the RPC session. So moving from the GUI, so once we enter to the GUI, we have to select the items. So the items will be printed from this compute sum, where the values are being evaluated, and where it will be calculated according to the increment. And once it's entered, and once we want to empty it and everything in the receipt basis, it happens here, and the summary of the receipt also happens here. And the deposit receiver, this is where the receipt is being created here, and this is where it classifies the item according to the items added. Where if we want to add a can, it goes according to the slot, in the sense the button which is added here. And the receipt is done according to the compute sum method calling the receipt basis. So once we have given a session there to print the receipt, so this is where it runs. So then the values have been passed from here. Then move into the client, where the the transactions, the values which is being sent, which I just while ago I just explained what is happening from the receipt basis, and the deposit item receiver, and this is where it is passed to the server. And moving on to the engineer's login, this is the engineer login class, and this is where the GUI of the engineer login being created. And moving to the action performed, the button of the login in the engineer login is verified from here, as it will be taking the password, and then if it's successful, it will give the engineer's GUI. It will display this GUI, and the classes which extends the deposit item. And moving to the update item values, and this is where it creates the RMI folder in the desktop, and a text file is being created, and the values have been updated and passed, and then read, all done in the text file, as I explained in the RPC session. So finally, the logout part of the GUI is called here, and that ends the session of the RMI recycle machine of the client's part. And thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you.